So we're here today with a guest from Belgium. That's Nino Bacelle from the Ranke Brewery. How are you doing, Nino?
Ciao, I'm very good. It's
Excellent.
holiday here today.
Is it holiday? Okay, cool. It's not holiday for us. We just had a huge shower 15 minutes ago, but now is sunny shining, so everything looks good for our Belgian day. And we will have a few beers from you. So, how long have you been brewing for the Ranke?
When did I start? That's what
Yeah,
you mean?
yeah.
So I started in to tell everything. I started as a kid. My father was a lemonade factory, has a lemonade factory, and he was distributing beer. So when we were small, we were sometimes tasting small quantities of beer. So the the feeling for beer was in there from a kid, and
So you
I made my first homebrew in 1981. I was born in 1958, so I was 21 when I tried my first beer. But at that moment, I didn't know nothing about making beer, so it was my first try, and it lasted for another 13 years before I started brewing officially in 1994.
So how was the passage between the small equipment that you had at home as a home brewer and then a huge thing as you have now in the Ranke Brewery?
Yeah, then it was quite difficult because it was just a hobby, and you can do it every 3 months. You see the result, or 2 months you see the result for what you've done in a small equipment. And in the beginning, it was not good. It took me several years to come on a good level. Nowadays, hobby brewers can see everything. They can find raw materials. They can find information. They can find all. In the 1980s, it was not like this. If you go to a bigger brewer and say, "I want to brew," what have I to do? Is they say, "Oh, it's not a good business, so stay out," and they didn't give you any information. So you have to look at it for yourself and experiment a lot. And it took me 10 years to make good beer and brewing school in between. Yeah.
So what was your first official brew in the Ranke?
My first official brewing was 5 March 1994 at the Deca Brewery, and it was the Guldenberg.
The
It was
Gulden.
the recipe for the Guldenberg. This was my first idea of making a beer who was like a blend of what was before my three favorites. My three favorites were smaller triple, Moonette blonde, and then the Orval dry hop beer.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's like an amalgam of these three styles in the Guldemer.
Excellent. And nowadays, there's a particular characteristics of your beers which make them different from probably every other beer in Belgium, and probably not just Belgium but Europe as well. Is the fact that you're just using flowers for the
Yeah.
hops.
So we have seen when I started brewing at Deca Brewery was near Popering. It's only 7 kilometers from Popering, and I said the brewer there was using German hops. So I said, why don't you use local hops from here? It's so close. But he said, I use only hop extract, and that's easier to use. So I said, why don't we try? And we both hop from the beginning in Poperingen and try to brew with it. And the equipment there has been fitted for whole hops from before. So we
Yeah.
just has to remake the hop filter inside the kettle to be able to use hops. So we bought hops from the beginning. And at the harvest, who is in September, of course. Then later we could see during the year that it was difficult to reproduce the same beer because the hop was degrading.
Mhm.
And in that era, it was not well known how to keep hop well because all the breweries had left working with whole hops. They just were growing to pellets and extract. Everybody was using that because it's so much easier to keep them, to buy them, and the whole year, and you can keep them easily because it's a conserved product. It's a product that is made for conservation. And then we learned that aging hop was another thing. So you have to buy the hops, and the challenge is then to keep them in good condition. So for that, you need a fridge at 0 degrees or lower temperature. So little by little, we evolved from buying hops and then being able to make very good beer in the first half of the season, and then the second half was more difficult because the hops were degraded
Yes.
already, and we started using a little bit of pellets at the end of the season to try to make up for the loss of quality. And then we could see this is not a good way because the taste of the beer was completely different with
Yep.
pellets, and that's how we learned that there's so much difference between whole hops and the hop oils who are inside. If they're not touched and kept in good condition, they give you so much pleasure and a good nose. And if you use pellets, the quality is already down for, let's say, half, and especially in the aroma. So we learned that um, flowers were much better, but it was not always practical to do it with flowers. So then we were looking for a way to improve that, and that's how we learned that if you can keep your whole hops, if you have them very fresh from the field and put it in the fridge, you can keep them until end of the season at a condition that it have to be in the store
Right.
in the dark, no air, and at 0 degrees, and that you can keep it until end of the season. That's why we decided we don't have to add pellets at the end of the season. We have to go back to the original designing board and buy only the hops for the whole season and keep them in the fridge. That's
Well,
the biggest challenge.
yes, and the other difference is that after you brew, you actually have to clean the whole equipment, and it takes a long time. So
That's
you
what
don't
we
brew
learned.
everything. Yeah.
That we learned also little by little. Um,
Mm,
it's one thing to choose whole hops, but the second thing is you have all the consequences, because the advantages of whole hops are one or two: just better taste, better nose. All the rest is disadvantages. You have more losses, much more work. You can buy only hops once a year, and you have to keep in mind that if you the challenge is to keep the quality in the hops. So you really need to be sure that you buy the hops now for the whole season, because
right.
buying the whole hops on the market is very difficult, because or there's non-existent, or it is not kept well, so the quality is not good. So keeping good hops, you only can work whole hops whole year if you buy them with the harvest, put it in the fridge, and be sure that this hops has been kept well. So that's the difficulty of it, and of course all the work. If you we put like 30 kilogram of hops in a batch of 40 hectoliter, we get out 400 kilogram,
Yep.
because every kilogram of dry hops keep back the moisture, and it's a loss of
Yeah, it's
beer.
full water. Yeah. Yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah. So, how's the market share at the moment between your sales in Belgium and in the rest of the world?
Market share for us is like 50-50 approx.
Okay.
It's like 50% Belgium and 50% um, export. But on the other hand, from what we sell in Belgium, some of the beer is also exported.
Okay.
You know, big guys like Van Uxim is a distributor in Belgium, buys a lot of beer, and so for us it's Belgian sales. But at the end, they export a lot also. So maybe in reality, I think export is like more like 60% and 40% consumed in Belgium. That is more
Yes.
or less what I think is the reality.
And how's the market after the COVID thing? Is it changed a lot, or?
Well, it was very difficult years, of course. We had COVID who crashed us on the head. So, and we were losing like 20-30% of volume.
Hmm.
Luckily, we were selling much more expensive bottles like for sours, and that compensates some of the losses. And in reality, we are only losing like for turnover like 5%, 10%. So it was okay to survive, especially also because the costs were lower, because the government was paying. You don't have to pay for your staff. So that it was bad times, but it was also times for where we have time to experiment, and we make a new beer like Amer, for example. We could do some other things like working with low fermentation. And after the two Corona years, we had a really we could
huge
see rise
increase.
the price, the
Mhm.
not the price, the sales for a good 20%. So it was after Corona, it was like, okay, hallelujah, we are going again, we are going up. And then came the Ukraine disaster and the petrol crisis, and that hits us more hard than the Corona years, because it's all the costs were going up for 20-30%, and the sales were down for 15-20%. So that was like a strangling effect that you have, and it was very difficult for. Luckily, we're already existing for almost 25 years, so we are more or less established, and we didn't overinvest before Corona, so it's okay. But it was difficult times. Last 3-4 years were difficult times. I hope it will be better in the future.
Yes, hopefully for everyone. So thank you for the interview today. I'd like to thank you guys at the brewery for the hospitality that you gave us last week, and then hope to see you soon in Italy as soon as possible.
I
Yeah,
hope too. I will. I almost age of being retired, so I will come to Italy then more. So, and then
excellent.
I want to drink something on and say salute.
Cheers. That's
I
that's a good
cannot pour
idea.
a glass for you.
I don't have a beer here, but I'll have it later on. Thank you very much. Thank you a lot,
Ciao
Nino. See you.
and
Ciao.
salute. Yeah.
Ciao.